Hey everybody, I'm Dave with Growing the Home Garden. Today I am out on a very beautiful but windy day putting together an elevated garden bed from Vego Garden. Now my idea for this garden bed is to put it on our back patio where we can use it as a culinary herb garden for the kitchen. We'll keep it close enough that we can easily go out and get basil or thyme, and I'm thinking maybe even some cherry tomatoes might work well in it as they cascade over the side, so we can just get some quick and easy stuff for the kitchen. So let's go on and get to it and start putting this together so we can see how it all comes together and how it works. All right, so let's take a look at what the box comes with. You can see obviously that these would be the corners and the legs down for that. These are probably the middle legs right there. Some sort of supports or something right here. I'm not 100% as to what those are yet. One of the sides, and then some more sides there. There's actually a stack of several of them here. We've got the 6-foot long bed, so there should be plenty of those to create that 6-foot long space there. And the color I picked out was an olive green color just because we really like green. And over here you can see this piece of rubber that'll go around the very top of it to kind of prevent you from scratching yourself on the metal, scrapes and stuff. And right there looks like probably some bottom pieces for the interior of the bed itself. And then looks like some more framing and pieces that go for the bottom shelf area. The bed also comes with this box here of casters so you can move around the cart. If you've got it on a nice paved surface, it would be easy to do that with. And of course, all the stuff you need to put it together, all these nuts and bolts, and it's got a little bit of a tool here so that you can put all the nuts and bolts together. So the instructions also tell you that you're going to need a few things. You need some gloves. Those are very handy. Here you've got a screwdriver. This is a ratchet driver set that I like to use on different things, and just a power screwdriver here to help put everything all together. So here is kind of a dry fit of the side section. We've got a side piece right here, and notice it's got a little arrow over on the left hand side, and that's going to be pointed up. We've got 2 corner pieces next to it. Then there's a bracing piece coming right here that will help to hold up the bottom of the bed itself. That piece is labeled with an H2, and then the bottom piece over here is labeled with an H3. The H3 piece will hold up the shelf on the very bottom of everything. So it's pretty cool that they've got everything nice and labeled, and it should be an easy assembly if you just follow the instructions. Alright, so I've got one side put together. Now I'll go ahead and get the other parts and put that side together. I've left these a little bit loose so that I can tighten them down. Sometimes by leaving things a little bit on the loose side, it gives you a little bit of flexibility when you're trying to put in pieces so that everything fits well. Then you go back and you screw everything down nice and tight. Now on this piece here, this is the H2 part. Make sure that you're doing it so that your holes are going to line up from here on this H2 to the exterior so you can put in the parts from the side. They should be able to go right through there. And if they aren't lining up, just loosen them up a little bit so that when you do get to that screw there, you'll be able to put them together and then retighten. Next, we're going to take these 2 pieces here and form them into a frame. It's pretty easy to figure out where these are going to kind of attach because one is made to go right in the other. There's a male end and a female end of each end. So there we go, and then we'll screw those in. Once we got those attached, we're going to piece them together with these longer legs here that'll go in the middle of the raised bed. Alright, so next we're going to attach these pieces here. These are the H6 pieces. And what I noticed on them is that there's a little spot right here where this notch here fits in nice and neatly on this side right there. Those 2 pieces fit together and blend well. And then you put in the screw right here. And it's the same on the opposite side, just upside down, just like this. And you want to make sure that you've got the H6 label facing the bed area itself. I've got this upside down so I can put that on easy. So it should go in like this. Okay, I ended up laying it on the ground because that was going to be the easiest way to get these in, just like there. I've got to tighten those down and put in the next pieces, which will be the middle section here onto this. All right, so I stood everything upright, lined up the holes for the middle section here, and I'm just going to attach them just like I did the sides. I've got it upside down because now I'll have like 4 legs together, which will make it a little easier if I don't keep dropping screws. So I've got the bottom braces put together now. Next up is going to be putting the sides on the raised bed portion of it. I still have it upside down so I can easily get to everything on it. So the instruction said to put everything upside down and put it in there. I found it was a little bit easier at one stage to get them on the side so that I'd have gravity working with me in the middle to get those on. So, use your best judgment and try to figure it out on your own a little bit as to what works best for you. If you are doing this with a partner trying to get it all together, it's going to go a lot easier than it is if you're doing it by yourself like I am. So the next part, these H5 parts here, which are going to serve to hold the bottom of the raised bed in place so we have a place to put all our soil and everything, are going to go next. And you want to make sure that the labels are facing up on these. That's H5. They'll go into these little screw holes here in the sides. And if you got it tight enough, it may sit there on your own while you're trying to get it in. Okay, that interior rail process was a little bit tedious. There were several of the screws that just did not want to go in right. So I loosened it up a little bit, eventually got them to go in straight. It would help if some of the screws were a little bit more beveled on the end so that it would line up a little bit easier with the hole and just let them go in. But, all in all, it's come together. It's looking pretty good. Next up, we're going to stick the bottom in. The bottom pieces look like this piece of corrugated tin or metal here. It's got a B1 label on them. The B1s go in first, and you'll want to make sure that the label side goes up. And they will go in just about like that right there. Actually, you know what? This flange side should probably go this direction. And that will line up with a hole on the side as well as the other 2 sides. And we'll do that one and then a couple more on the interior of the bed. Now, when you're putting this middle piece in an earlier step, make sure that the 2 holes are going toward the raised bed itself. I goofed that up and I had the single hole going up toward the raised bed, and I need the double so that the base of the bottom of the raised bed portion can tie into that spot and that spot. There's a piece here and a piece here, and they'll stop here with a bit of a flange section of it and get screwed in at that point. Now the other pieces of metal in the bottom here, the B3 pieces, actually have a flange that will overlap on the B1 pieces. So just make sure that they nest in together really nice and tight before you start screwing anything down. So the way that corrugated metal on the interior of the bed works is you see these ridges. They create a bit of a water channel, and then the water can escape out the side. So it will have plenty of good drainage out each side of the bed from here and on the opposite side. I also went through and I finished putting in these screws that were along the side to cinch up the rest of the bed so it's nice and sturdy on the sides. Now the casters are pretty heavy duty, strong looking casters. They feel pretty good. So we're going to put them in. They've got some pretty good threaded screw ends to them, and they'll just go into the bottom of each of the posts. So I put the casters on, so the locking one is here, a locking one is here, and then another locking one is in the other back corner as you're looking at it. That way it can be nice and solidly locked in place, but you've also got these free rolling casters on here. They're pretty sturdy looking casters, they go on really easy. Now we're at one of the last steps of putting this together, and we just get these little grates, and they've got these holes here that you just slide in on both sides, just like that. If everything's lined up, they should go in pretty easy. These will be great for putting pots and things underneath if you're wanting to just use it for some storage or watering cans. There's a lot of good uses for the spot under here. I probably wouldn't put anything that didn't or couldn't stand to get wet because you're going to get some drainage coming off of the bed up above. All right, so here is the completed elevated garden bed from Vego. And this is, again, going to go on our back patio. So the next step really is me getting this around to the backyard and onto that patio, and then filling it up with some sort of a good raised bed potting mix. Here we are. We've got it all put together. There's one thing I've got left to do, and that's to cut off the excess little rubber gasket here at the top. This is designed to help protect you from getting cuts and scrapes and stuff as you're working in the garden. Because it is a metal raised bed, you could end up with some sharp corners and different things on there. So it came together pretty okay. I had a few challenges with it where I'm trying to get screws into certain places, and the screw holes did not exactly want to line up really well with the screws itself. So that was a little bit harder in some places, but when you realign things and loosen stuff up, it usually went in okay. I didn't have any major issues other than that in putting it together. It's got the caster wheels on the bottom and the front, and I've got two in the back here to keep it from rolling anywhere on the patio. You can see it's pretty stable. So the next step for me is to go ahead and fill this up and get ready to plant it. And for that, I bought some potting mix that I can use in raised beds. So I'll put that over here. It's not a potting mix, it's raised bed mix. So I'll be filling this up with some nice raised bed soil. But one of the first steps I'm going to do is actually fill up with a bit of partially decomposed leaves. These are leaves that have been sitting out since fall of last year in a large pile. And it just adds a little bit of extra organic matter to the bottom. It'll help hold some water, and it'll break down over time to just help nourish the soil at the bottom area. It also helps to lessen the amount of raised bed soil mix that I'm going to need to put in here. So as you can see, we've got a lot of clover here too, and clover is a high nitrogen type plant. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a lot of these greens up and put them in this bucket and move them into the bed, just to help balance the brown material that I put in with the leaves. Now the easiest way to do this is probably with a bagging lawnmower, where you bag it up, mow over it, bag it up, put it in your bin. But for this, I'm just going to use some clippers and get what I can get. So I've got a partial bucket here of clover greens. I'm just going to sprinkle them all over the raised bed area here on top of the leaves. Get a pretty good layer of coverage. This is just to help balance that brown material a little bit. So the raised bed soil mix that I picked out is a combination of compost and forest products and different things, but it left out peat, so it does not contain any peat moss in it. And I'm not going to give you the name of this just because I don't really know about this brand any. I have not ever used this particular brand before. So I hate to recommend something that may not work out in the end for anybody. But we'll give it a test and see how it goes. So if we're doing some simple math on filling up this bed and how much you need, this is 6 feet long, 2 foot wide, almost 1 foot deep. So if you're filling it up all the way, and I'm leaving a little bit of space here, a little bit of about a 1 inch to 2 inch gap. That way, if there's any water overflow, it stays in the bed and doesn't overflow outside of the bed. But if you're doing that math, you've got 12 cubic feet to fill up here. Now, even with the extra stuff that I put in at the bottom, the leaves and the clover, that is still 6 1.5 cubic bags to get to this point right there. Those 1.5 cubic foot bags cost me $8 a piece. So if I've got 6 of those, that's $48 to fill up this raised bed. Plus the organic matter that I added at the bottom. You might need a little bit more if you're just going with the straight soil, but $50 for a raised bed, that's not a bad deal. So why might you want an elevated raised bed like this? Oh, there's a lot of really great reasons. If you are somebody who has back issues, knee issues, or you just have trouble bending over and getting into a conventional raised bed or in an in-ground garden, this puts everything up to your waist level. And so you can easily access the plants you're trying to work on. Maybe you're taking cuttings from something and you can easily get to those, or you're just planting the bed to begin with. And it just makes it simpler to bring it up to this height. Obviously, there's good advantages to raised beds in general where you are the one who's controlling the soil. You're not left up to what's in the ground when you're tilling into the ground in that area. Plus, if you live in a spot that you don't really have a lot of ground space to put in raised beds or put in a in-ground vegetable garden, you've got something here that could fit on a patio or a deck. It would go really well on either of those spaces. And I think it makes a pretty nice looking bed. I'm looking forward to getting a lot of herbs planted in here, which is what I'm about to do next. Okay, so now it's time to get to planting, and this is parsley. I like to use these core pots because you can see how well the roots just kind of emerge from them, and they are definitely ready to get in here. And what's nice about this kind of soil is I can just dig right into it and plant right up there, and that core pot goes straight in the ground, no root disturbance whatsoever. So that works really well. I've already got one in here. I'm going to do one more, so we'll have 3 parsley plants planted. I have some basil that I'm also going to do here, but I'm not going to plant it today just because we are going to have some freezing temperatures probably in the next week, so I don't want to risk that. These are pretty frost tolerant plants, so I don't think it'll be a big deal. I also have an Italian oregano that I picked up at the store when I was getting my soil, so I'm going to put that in here also. Oregano does spread, so I may end up having to move it out of this eventually, but for now it's small and compact, and it shouldn't interfere too much with the parsley because the parsley will grow up a little bit into those formations there. Another plant I've got, and it's just a little plant right now, this is some thyme. So I'm going to put in the thyme also. It'll probably be right over here next to the oregano. In this pot, you can see I've got some mint growing. It's just now starting to come back from the winter. There's also some weed seeds that have gone in here. So I'm going to try to separate out some sprigs of mint to put in here. This is a chocolate mint. You never want to grow mint in a direct sowing garden area type of situation. Putting it in a bed like this or pots is really the ideal scenario. So, and obviously we want to give it a really good dose of water here. We've got a lot of soil that needs to get moistened, so we're just going to keep some water on it. We should have some storms later today that are going to help as well, but let's get them started good. So there you have it, the Vego Garden Elevated Raised Garden Bed. There's several colors you can choose from. I really kind of like this green color. I have a tendency toward green things anyway, so you know, it kind of makes sense for me. But it's a pretty sturdy product. It went together pretty well. I'm also wondering if the area underneath this could be utilized as a plant propagation area. It would still get some drainage from up above and have some nice area where it's going to be shaded from the direct sun. So it might be something I experiment with, maybe putting some sort of magnetic skirt around the bottom with a little bit of a row cover to help shield that morning sun a little bit more around the bottom. But we'll see. That might be a cool modification to try. But I'm Dave with Growing the Home Garden. If you found this interesting, hit the like button and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time on Growing the Home Garden.